up and everything else. Moved on.
Yeah.
Took the dogs upstairs because this is the time of day, like unlike in the morning when we do podcasts, this is the type of day where like people are coming home and walking their dogs and stuff. And
Uh-huh.
our dogs just lose their shit whenever that happens. Oops, sorry, YouTube. I said a bad word. All right, here
Oh
comes.
no.
All right,
We don't
tweet
need
that
that
thing
again.
out. All right, tweet that or not tweet or whatever that is on the new platform, Blue Sky. What do you call when you post something on there? Blue skying?
You Skyfall.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the podcast part of this. Hello there, and welcome to the Hawkeye Hotspot podcast. It is Wednesday, November the 27th, exactly 4 p.m. Central Time. It might be a few seconds after that, though. Yes, an unusual time for me, Rob Howe, and my co host, Scott Docterman from The Athletic, but you may know tomorrow is Thanksgiving. So we do not, as much as we love you people, we do not want to talk to you on Thanksgiving. We would rather do it this evening. And we're going to attack this thing a little bit differently instead of doing like rewind of Maryland, look ahead to Nebraska. We'll talk about that stuff and probably fold it into the conversation. But Scott and I talked about before we started recording, just talking about kind of the strange week and a half we've had around here, just in terms of news, how it's disseminated. Maybe we can have some lessons on PR, things like that. We can do all that stuff in this podcast. And how are you, Scott?
I'm thrilled that by tonight I don't have anything I really think I'm supposed to do for a couple of days, or at least till Friday. So that's a new phenomenon and feeling, because every day I've been just like, juggling ping pong balls and my ears going to the other side. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. It's just like, oh, but yeah, I'm good. I'm looking forward to this. So.
Yeah. So I guess we can kind of give folks an overview and then kind of take this chronologically. Um, Actually, let's just start chronologically. So I guess it was last Monday. There was a report from, is it Matt Zenith? Matt Zenith
Mm-hmm.
from
Is he? Yeah.
On Three. I got his,
Mm-hmm.
do I have the right
Is
organization?
it
Okay, I'm doing
24/7?
well. So,
No.
but he reported that Brendan Sullivan was out for the season, meaning the regular season. That we don't know if that's true at this point after this week, but we'll more on that later. Um, and that kind of seemed to uh, cause the wagons to be circled, for lack of a better term, at Iowa. Um, and then it was followed up on Tuesday by Kirk Ferentz being very vague on Cade McNamara's situation. And I should add that the report on the Monday was that Cade McNamara would start against Maryland, also something that did not happen. So we're already off to a hot start here, like 2 days into last week. Uh, Very weird coming out of that press conference, Scott. Just unusual stuff. You know, you and I have been doing this for decades, and uh, that's why we're approaching this podcast this way, guys. It's unusual. So I think it's worthy of talking about. And I think it also speaks to kind of the new landscape with PR and college football and guys that are making decisions, business decisions. It's all going to take adjustment. We've talked about on this podcast, NIL and you know, college football playoff expansion. All these things are changing the sport as we know it. The House settlement, everything. It's constantly moving, and I think that's why in a certain storm, I won't call it a perfect storm, you get what we're going through right now, which is conflicting information, for lack of a better term. Scott is involved in this, so I definitely wanted to talk about him. Um, he he talked about on this podcast last week actually about the potential of Cade walking away from the team. I don't know how you want to frame it, but prior to that, and I didn't know this because I didn't listen to your and Chad's podcast last Wednesday night. So that was the first I had heard of it. But you guys were a little bit more strong in your reporting, I guess, or you what put it this way, folks. I'm not the beat writer anymore. Chad is, Scott still. Those guys have good connections. So in my mind, as somebody that's not doing it on the beat, I'm trying to put these pieces together. I know Scott and Chad aren't making shit up and just throwing stuff at the wall. So that I take into consideration. Then I take Zilla appearance.
Yeah.
You feeling better?
Hi,
You feeling better?
Let's hope. Let's hope he doesn't real round two all over the computer here. But
yeah, so
I guess
let me just set you up here real quick. Basically what happened was, and then David Eichholt from 247 reported on Jamari Harris passing on the rest of the season for to prepare for the NFL draft. That led to Iowa, I believe, on Friday releasing a statement about Cade McNamara and Jamari Harris both having medical issues as to why they wouldn't travel to Maryland. Then Kirk said he misspoke, saying Cade McNamara was cleared to practice but not play with a concussion. I don't know how that works. I guess you can protect him in practice. It's not a full practice. But anyway, it's just kind of and I talked to Jamari this past Monday, a few nights ago, so I'll bring that into the equation as well. But my thought on this, Scott, is more than one thing can be true. And when you have a PR firm working for a college football program, they do things to make it look as good as it can on the outside. So the way I look at it is I don't know anything. These guys do. The way I put this puzzle together was Kirk was obviously uncomfortable last Tuesday talking about Cade. Something happened between Sunday, the report on Monday that he was going to take over as the starter, and then what happened on Tuesday. They had a couple days to kind of figure out, because these guys talked about it Wednesday night. We talked about it Thursday. I think off of their podcast, it started to gain steam on social media and people talking about it. And it was time to circle the wagons again and figure this out. And it makes the program look better if a guy isn't passing on the rest of the season for the NFL draft. It makes the program look better if the starting quarterback of the first 8 games isn't walking away from the team and quitting, but can't play because he's hurt. These are things to consider. I'm not saying any of this is true, but these are the thoughts that are going through my mind, trying to approach this logically and put the pieces together. What do you say, Scott? Let us know what you know, what you feel comfortable talking about here, and how do you think we got to this point?
Well, I guess I'll start by saying that everybody has their truth, and it's not necessarily, it could be the same thing but different in that. Let's start with Cade. I think it's a little bit more. It's a little bit easier to explain, I think, if I can make it right. Okay, going back to a week ago Sunday, Cade shows up at practice. He practices.
That would have been the Sunday before Maryland.
Maryland, correct. So we're talking 10 days ago.
Okay.
He shows up, he practices. Kirk tells James Allen or Matt Weitzel the starting lineup. Depth chart, and he's on it. He's QB1 on that.
Yep.
Brendan Sullivan is not, because somebody told Matt Zenitz that Brendan Sullivan isn't going to be is out for the rest of the season, which sounds so much worse than, hey, he's not going to be able to play for the next 2 games, because that's what it was. Okay, so then it's like, oh, well, Cade McNamara is back. All right. Tuesday rolls around and Cade McNamara does not come to practice.
It's important to note here from a timeline standpoint, Tuesday morning is when they practice. We did not get access to Kirk until after practice on Tuesday. Go ahead, Scott.
Correct. Monday, Cade apparently started feeling symptoms, concussion-related symptoms based on what he was doing. Tuesday, he did not show up to practice. Wednesday, he went to the facility, but left before practice started. But Tuesday afternoon, after Cade did not show up to practice, was when Kirk met with media. It seems to me at that point that Kirk is perplexed by the situation himself. Why wasn't Cade there? Did he have a setback? He said he didn't have a setback because the doctors apparently didn't think he had a setback, that he was cleared to practice. So it was a very confusing situation to him and wondering, and he tried to talk around it as best as he could because he isn't going to, if we know Kirk, he rarely, if ever, talks smack about players.
No throwing under the bus. Yeah.
No, he's never been that type of a coach. So it was what I consider bizarre is probably the best word I can describe, because again, at that point on Tuesday, you go back to Sunday, Cade practiced. Monday, he's on the depth chart. Tuesday, and this is what we knew at that time. And then Tuesday, we don't know.
Just read that. If you read through his press conference transcript from last Tuesday, you can see how strange it is. You guys are asking questions from all different angles about Cade, and it was just very, very vague. And people were left with more questions than answers coming out of that thing.
Exactly. And so throughout the week, talking to or getting information from people close to the situation, who know that they believed that Cade was basically walking away. He wasn't showing up. He wasn't showing up at all to practice. When you have a walk-on quarterback who started your fifth string now being the starter, and he's not helping that person, even if he's concussed and can't play, but he's also a team captain. So therefore, shouldn't he be at least at practice helping this player get well, or learning the offense, something maybe he sees and on tape or something to help, but he wasn't there. So by the end of the week, as you noted, Chad and I had a podcast and kind of said what we'd heard, along those lines, and I tried to frame it in two different discussions. If he has concussion related symptoms, get better. We wish you the best, pray for you. If it's not concussion related symptoms, then you're quitting on your team. That's really what it is. If you're not showing up and you're not feeling concussion related symptoms and your team's still competing, then you're quitting, and I think he took some serious issues at that and released his own statement Friday on Instagram while the team was in the air to Baltimore. And whether I think that it was through an agent or an attorney that helped him write it. And he's said, explained his point of view on that, which is different than some of the things we've heard. But you know what? His point of view is valid, that he started feeling symptoms and he's been meeting with a specialist on concussions and he's been lifting, which I think runs counter to me as far as this type of situation. But anyway, that's what he had to say. And then on Friday night, because of that situation, and then Jamari Harris, which we can get into as well, that Iowa releases a statement, saying that Kirk misspoke when he said he was cleared to play, not cleared to practice, or that he was cleared to practice, but not to play. And then Kirk misspoke when he said he was cleared to play, and that he was left back home because of, because of the health-related issues. And same thing with Jamari Harris. Now, when it relates, and then this week, Cade is back practicing. Now, will he play? At this point, he's not the starter. He's not going to start this game, and it wouldn't surprise me if he didn't play in this game. I think that it's been a significant lack of communication, A, by Cade's part, but B, also by the football team. And I think there's been some restraint to some extent by Kirk Ferentz, because in the past, before the NIL, probably before 2020, I don't know that these players would be receiving any kind of that they would be a part of the program in any kind of measurement. But things have changed over time. And when you talk about somebody, Kirk had mentioned this, I think it was on Saturday after his game, that it's easy to be tough with somebody else's body. And if you don't know, I mean, what could be different from, hey, I'm a doctor, I clear you on concussion related symptoms versus I'm feeling this way. That's you just don't I don't know how you feel, and it could be bad, it could be just lightheaded, I don't know. So he showed some pretty good restraint in my view of not saying things that you'd have to walk back later or that could be actionable or what have you. And I think that they've got to be careful straddling those lines with injuries because injuries feel different to different people. And he said something to the point that injuries, there are three components of every injury as to whether people return. The medical staff has to clear you. If that doesn't happen, then there's no chance. Coaches have to clear you that you're ready, and the player himself has to clear himself or be ready to play. So right now we're standing here and it's clearly cloudy, muddied waters of Cade McNamara. He's practicing. How well he's received, I don't know. There's only one game left, and it takes place on Friday night. And then after that, who knows? So overall, with that situation, I don't think there are any winners. I think this is, Iowa has tried its best to try to not throw him under the bus, to stay above the fray, because to say anything negative about somebody experiencing a concussion does not suit them well or does not make them look well. So I think it's probably more of this exhale, bite your lip, let it run till the end of the season, and then figure out the next step.
Yeah, and it all makes sense. And, I think there obviously are layers to this and unknowns, as you said. We don't know how Cade feels. Headache, just effects from it. We don't know how Jamari Harris feels. He could be cleared to play doctor wise, coach wise. Maybe he doesn't feel like he wants to push whatever it is. And I'll talk about that more in a minute. But I just think that these situations become more confusing as to what happened last week. And it's almost like, like you said, 10 years ago, if something happened like this, these guys would have just been off the team, probably wouldn't walked on senior day. But appearances are super important these days, whether you're being judged on social media, in the media, wherever. And Iowa was left kind of scrambling last week because you guys had sources to put information out there to try to put the best face on what happened. Mm-hmm. And that's what they got to on Friday. And since then, they've been able to kind of thread the needle to make this seem like, because again, you don't want, it's not good for the program to have a player shut it down at the end of the season if they can play. Again, gray area there. Can they play? I don't know. Depends on who you ask. That in mind, I just think there's going to be more of an understanding of these situations in the future, just in terms of the sport itself, that differ from what Kirk Ferentz believes and how he feels like he should run his program. And are you in or are you not in? There's no kind of in, but now there is a kind of in.
That's the frustrating part of this. And you're talking about a sport that is violent in nature. There's nothing about football that's easy. And every single player even those who have never taken the field on Saturday, but do Monday through Thursday, Friday, is hurting. All the practice players are hurting. All the, that there's no like, hey, I'm fresh, I'm easy. No, it's none of that right now. So everybody is hurting. Um, Football is always described as a brotherhood, a bond. You've got to be able to trust the player next to you and trust the player in the locker room, because you've been going at it since, in a couple weeks, well, in early January, once they come back from the bowl game, they're going to be starting their winter conditioning, building period. And that's hell on earth. That's 3 or 4 hours a day of that. Then you got summer conditioning, and you're waking up at the crack of dawn and running in a 95-degree heat. And you've got all the lifting, all the practice, all the injuries you fight through, the training room sessions, everything. And that's why it's, whenever somebody is in a situation where they are opting out or quitting, whether it's based on health or not, it's never looked upon very good. Now, there are reasons, and do reasons equal excuses? It depends on your perspective.
It's also case by case, probably.
Absolutely. And, in Jamari's case, there's, I don't know how much I want to go.
Now you're teasing people.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to figure out the right words, because I had a lot of them shoved back in my ear, even though I was right last week. That to leave the program at the time that he did was not viewed upon favorably by anybody in the building. And he had to make a business decision for himself. And it's understandable. But it doesn't always make it. You can certainly interrupt and let me know what Jamari's point of view is.
I will. I'll give you his feedback in a bit, but I think we're in the pocket of this conversation where this is where things are changing. This is where I think mindsets are going to change, whereas it's still a brotherhood, but I think the players will have more understanding for fellow players in a position where somebody's maybe has an injury they could play through, or something going on in their life. I mean, who knows what a medical issue is? A lot of us think it's something physical. It could be mental too, but I just think going forward, there's going to be more of an acceptance of this, particularly within programs, because you want to be known as a program that's caring about each student athlete's future. And if you're saying, suck it up, go out there and play, that's not having that, that player's, you're putting team over player, which you normally like to do, but it's different now when you're talking about, figuring out if somebody is well enough to play or not well enough to play. There's too much gray area there to hang somebody out to dry if they feel like they can't go.
No question. And that's where you get into a situation where somebody, Jamari has a lingering injury that needs correction. And do you wait to the end of the regular season to have it taken care of? And will you be ready in time to propel yourself into being a higher draft pick, because you'll meet all the requirements for the combine to compete and do all those things? Or you shut it down early? And how do you do it? Can you play? Can you play effectively? Does the opponent coming up have any bearing on what's happening? Do you feel like, oh man, I'll probably struggle this week and have some bad tape? Or is it, I've got too much to risk here? But then again, in this sport in particular, how are you viewed by NFL people? Now, I think some people could be, I would say in Jamari's case, every single NFL team will ask him about this. Every single one of them. Some of them directly and some of them not nice. Because again, the NFL, you want to say college is a business. The NFL is all about it. Now, some people are going to say he can play. Okay, we'll take him. Other people will say, but can we trust that you're going to be all in all the time? And players make these decisions all the time, and I've seen it before, like in the NFL, where, there's been like offensive linemen who will tear a pec muscle that's just like, you get surgery and you're done for the year. But there's been a couple that I've seen that says, hey, will you guarantee my salary and I'll play? But if you don't, I got to get surgery, stuff like that. But that's different to an extreme. And I think in this case, every interpretation is up to the individual. And Jamari had to make a business decision that he felt was in his best interest. The timing of it, though, is hard to accept. If this maybe happened 3 weeks ago, it's probably one that you go, yeah, I can see it. Or if it happened Saturday morning and anybody can bow out of a bowl game now. There's really no negative repercussions at any level anymore if you decide you're not going to play in a bowl game.
Yeah. A non-CFP bowl game, especially.
Oh yeah, if you opt out of the playoff, F you.
Yeah.
I won't say the word anymore.
Please don't.
Yeah. But yeah, if you're in the playoff and you opt out because of a business decision, then that business decision is going to come back to haunt you exponentially. But if you decide I'm not going to go to the ReliaQuest Bowl or the Music City Bowl, like nobody expects Caleb Johnson to be there. In fact, if he's there, I'll be more surprised. That's okay. But if he decided today, I don't want to play in the bowl against Nebraska, that's not going to be looked upon kindly. It's kind of like if you're on a basketball team and you're got 2 games left before senior day in the Big Ten tournament, you decide to opt out and get ready for the NBA because your team's going to go to the NIT. I don't think anybody would begrudge you if you opt out of the NIT, but they will if you opt out of senior day in the Big Ten tournament. So that's kind of where I think here lies that discussion. And it's going to be one that's going to happen more and more frequently. We know. And I've seen players that have been injured that have opted out otherwise. And I think that's different. If you're like, I think one of the Bosas did that. It might have been Nick Bosa. That just, he got hurt. It was going to be bad. It was going to take him
remember that
6 to 8 weeks. And it was just like, all right, I'm done. I'm going to go get this work done. That's acceptable. Doing it 8 or 9 days before the season finale, that's probably not looked upon kindly.
And we don't know how to quantify that either, as Scott said. Different NFL teams look at different things. They're gonna weigh aspects of a player's resume differently. All of those things are differently. Different coaches are going to view these situations differently. The important thing is here, I don't think any of these people are bad people. However you judge this, if you're judging this from inside the building, one of his teammates, a coach, whatever, or somebody on the outside, I don't think this is malicious at all. No. It's not like they're trying to submarine the team or cost games or anything like that. It's just sometimes these decisions are hard to make. And as Scott said, it's a very violent sport. You factor in going out there, and I literally have a different lens that I look through when it comes to watching these guys, huge individuals, run into each other for 3 hours every Saturday in the fall. And you've seen guys, Scott, former NFL guys, even guys that just play college, trouble walking, trouble picking up their children. It changes their quality of life. So I'm not going to sit here on my ass eating Doritos in my living room telling somebody whether or not they should go out there and play. It's a personal decision. And then people are going to judge the decision. It's just the way of life.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, everybody views it differently. Some people think if you opt out of a bowl game, it's, then you're dead to me. Other people look at it in different lens. I think the first one that really kind of popped up that became a big deal was Christian McCaffrey, decided not to go and play in the Sun Bowl. Makes sense. And part of it is you look at like Jake Butt when he was a tight end at Michigan. Now he's a very good, commentator, up on the up and up. but he tore his ACL in the Orange Bowl. He was never the same player, and he was done. There was the what
Linebacker from Notre
Jalen Smith.
Dame. Yeah, Jalen
Yeah,
Smith. Yep.
yeah. I mean, it was a severe, injury that not only sent him to the second round when he was probably a top 5 pick, but he never was able to really return and be the player that he was all year long. And that's not to say that, well, we should just eliminate the postseason altogether or anything. And because it is the game. The game's the game, and everybody knows it. That's why you buy into it. And the violence is something unless you're up close or have you experienced it, you just can't it's and I can't imagine trying to seeing somebody like, I mean, Jay Higgins has such intense short range and power, the pop that he has with tackles, or a YA Black, or some of these guys coming off the block on
Just
the
the
offensive line.
collisions in the trenches are intense. I can't really explain it to you unless you're down there shooting photos and you're straight across and you watch these guys just smash into each other.
I mean, you're talking about guys who run sub 5, they're 300 pounds. They run 5 flat or less in the 40. They can squat 500-600 pounds or more. And the collision that they make, I mean, just, it sounds like, taking a sledgehammer to a tree. I mean, it's just so, and you're doing it over and over and over again. And then there's more, room. It's such a violent game that you can't quantify it unless you've experienced it or seen, and so, it's easy for me to sit on the couch and say, oh, you whatever, get up off, get up and do that. But I think in this case, where does the truth lie? And it's probably in the middle, and it's based on your perspective. Is it, is Jamari a quitter, or is it, or is he not? Or is it just, hey, he's doing the right by him, and he needs to do right by him right now. And when you get to the NFL, there's going to be different views of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Dan Campbell at Detroit loved Sam Laporta from day one at the combine, because what did he do? He tore his meniscus at Minnesota. 5 weeks later, he's out there playing in a bowl game. He's one of ours, and you feel, and if some people are like, what, I can't have anybody that I can't trust that's going to quit on the team. Then there's the other people that say, I understand what you mean. I understand why you did it. Your team's 6-4. You're not going to go to the championship. You're not going to go to a playoff. Get that corrected. And I understand, you've played really well this year. You've been one of the highest graded defensive backs in the country. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. You've been there long enough that, and then there's going to be those NFL people that say, what, he just did what he had to do, and we're all right with that. Because we have to, because a lot of times we'll cut him, at certain times, save a penny. So it's not going to be a black and white situation. It's going to be a lot of gray, and he'll be off. I guarantee he'll be off on some teams' boards that just say, I don't want any part of this. And then there's going to be other people that'll say, what, I understand. And I think that's probably the case for everybody looking at this point of view. Most people who played will say he quit on the team. I can't accept that. Other people will say, yeah, he made the right decision for him, and it's probably for the best.
Yeah, and we'll see how those opinions and views change, depending on your age. I'm sure that factors into it as well, when, you're from Scott and I's era where they're just like, yeah, spit on that thing and rub it in and get back in there. Things are a little different now. Players don't get smelling salts when they get concussions and get thrown back on the field, things like that. So we'll see how this thing goes. After this break, I will come back and kind of give you a paraphrase on what Jamari told me, and we can go over that a little bit. First, I want to let you guys know that support for the podcast comes from Systems Unlimited, celebrating 50 years of providing services to people living with disabilities and mental health needs throughout East Central Iowa. A list of their services and upcoming events can be found at sui.org. That is sui.org. Thank you to Systems Unlimited. Let's hear from a few more of our sponsors now, and Scott and I will be back on the other side with some more Hawk Talk. Hang in there. And we are back here on the Hawkeye Hotspot podcast. Iowa Hawkeye on the new Blue Sky, Iowa Miller at Blue Sky Social. Will you discuss men's basketball issues and just your guys' outlook this season and immediate future scenarios? I tell you what, we're going to get more into basketball as we go. I've been impressed for the most part with what I've seen in the limited amount I've seen. Injuries like the football team are hitting basketball now, so maybe it's just something in the water over there across the river. But we'll have a lot of time to talk about basketball. I don't want to blow you guys off. I know there are a lot of basketball fans in there, but we have a lot of the winter to talk about that. And I kind of want to focus on football as we're winding down at this point. But yeah, we'll talk about basketball soon. All right, Scott, here's what I got from Jamari. Let me get back. I don't know if you have this pulled up. I do.
I couldn't find it on your site. I was looking at it.
Yeah, it's in my preview. I do weird things now with my preview. I kind of just talk about what are the hot topics instead of just doing a stale, this is how they match up. And then I do a separate thing just talking about statistics and X's and O's and things like that. But this is more, I talked about the quarterbacks that we just talked about. And then with Jamari, this is the quote he gave me, Scott. I'm dealing with something that needed to be addressed in order for me to maximize the 8-week window I got in order to be the best version of myself come February 27th. And as Scott knows, I used the parenthetical reference in my story. That is when the NFL draft combine is. So it was definitely not something I just came up with overnight. It was definitely a well-calculated decision so it could be best for the team, for my family, and ultimately myself. I'll read on here. Harris became excited talking about the performances of fellow Hawkeye cornerbacks Deshaun Lee, TJ Hall against Maryland's talented receivers. I think that was their coming out party, and I'm excited for what they're going to do for this program next year, Harris said. The benefit of Harris being out, obviously, is these guys get more of a chance to play. The young guys proved they were ready against Maryland, Harris said. He understands, and I kind of did more parenthetical or just kind of referenced this, paraphrased what he told me in terms of people judging him. And he knows, like we just talked about, Scott, people have different views, and he knows he can't control that. This isn't the first time I've made a decision where I may have lost some friends, he said. But the support of the Hawkeye program helps. Every conversation I had about this ended with a hug, he said. And that's why I say I'm truly at peace. So, I'm thinking he talked to the assistant coaches. Maybe they had mixed views. Maybe Kirk had a mixed view about what was going on. But in the end, they showed appreciation for what he did for the program and hugged him because they care about him as a person. And that's the important thing. And the most encouraging thing for me that's come out of this. You know what I mean? I don't want to say who it was, but this was late, probably 2010-ish. I had a player that declared early for the draft, and the conversation in the head coach's office did not go well. And I may have talked about this before.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But again, we're almost 15 years later than that, Scott, and times have changed. And give Kirk credit, he's changed with the times, and that's why he's survived. So, for instance, and this is just me hypothetical. Cade has a setback on a Monday or a Tuesday. He gets really frustrated. He's been through a shitload of injuries, surgeries, things like that. In his head, he's like, man, this is just, I can't deal. And he walks away and doesn't go with the team. That, I don't know if that's the case. Again, you know more than me. I would think somebody in the program reached out to him, like, where the hell is Cade? However, that went down. If they can get to the point after that, that the relationship is good at the end for everybody, I think that's what you really want. You want a relationship with Cade McNamara after he's done here. You want a relationship with Jamari Harris after he's done here. So again, it becomes, can we understand each other? I don't agree with you, but I understand why you're doing it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that. And you've got conflicting interests, not only points of view, but interests. I mean, Kirk is invested in winning every game. I mean,
Yes.
and not just financially. I mean, I think that's a little bit overrated, for him, 8-4 versus 7-5. I don't know that it makes him any more money, and I don't think it matters. But I think
No,
he wants to.
he's competitive.
Yes,
You don't do what he's done
yeah,
if you're not competitive, really competitive.
exactly. And each player is going to take that differently,
Yes.
because, and that's the point of view that comes along. And whether, hey, you quit on us when we needed you the most versus, what, I understand, go do your thing. And over time that'll fade, because some of these players that maybe are a little bit upset, we'll see him at the combine and they'll probably move on. And, they may be on the same NFL team or maybe opposed from one another, on special teams or something like that. Um,
And I
but
think Kirk may have learned about PR a little bit when LaShawn and Caleb Brown,
yeah,
because that, remember how that was handled.
yeah,
If they're not playing, what are we missing, or something to
yeah.
that effect. Again, a month or two later, we have a different approach.
Right. And of course the situations are so different
Yeah,
that
they are.
you could, with LaShawn, I hated seeing it for LaShawn from the point of, I felt like he gave a lot to that program. It's perfectly understandable why he'd want to do that. Preserve an extra year, go play one, which is going to go to Memphis now, go play one more season and have his chance to go to the NFL, because being the backup to an All-American running back this year is not what he envisioned in the when he read his tarot cards before the season.
No.
You know, I think it's understandable. Caleb Brown was a huge disappointment in every facet. Got in trouble multiple times and ultimately just, and good for him that he's going on and doing his thing too. But I think when you look at, that's a playing time decision. This is straddling the line between injury and hurt and helping the team versus not. I think in his case, there's no victory in saying how you feel publicly about this situation for either player. Because if you call out your quarterback who says he experienced a concussion and he's experiencing symptoms of it, he comes off as a cruel, heartless ogre that will not win him any favors with anybody. Media will vilify him. Future players may, oh, I'm not going there. So there's no winning with that. Likewise, if you say, hey, it's easy to be tough with another man's body, and you're talking about Jamari Harris in the same vein, that, hey, okay, but, at the same time, it doesn't mean he can't be disappointed, and then what's he going to do when it comes to the draft? I mean, what's he going to say? Because, he's been alleged to have, tank Akram Wadley, which was not the case at all. But he was alleged to have done that, and he would have to defend himself if he said, coaches come and ask about Jamari. He said, you know what, he quit on us. If he said something like that and it got back to him, and he went from being a third round pick to an sixth round pick or out of the draft altogether, and then it got back around, then look what they can do. I mean, look at the residue from George Kittle, fall into the
Yeah,
fifth round, and scouts saying, well, Iowa didn't really sell this guy. He had bad football character, which was one person who's not there anymore. But
exactly. And that was not alone. That was
no,
not an isolated incident.
not at all.
Say
So
that.
so in Kirk's best interest and the program's best interest, it's for him to take the high road, to not say anything negative about the players publicly, let it roll. If that means, okay, you can come back to practice, but that doesn't mean he has to play him either.
Yeah.
And he can decide whatever he wants to do. Now, the walking part of it is interesting, because do you let him walk? I think,
Jamari is.
yeah.
He told
Jamar,
me he's going out. His mom's going to be there, and they're going to do the senior day again. And I think the same with Cade, as far as I know.
and no matter what you think about the moment, just be polite. It doesn't cost anything to be polite, and let them have their moment, and then move on. It's complicated. You let emotions get the best of you, that bad things can happen. And what does it mean going forward? I mean, these situations are going to happen more regularly, but they're also can be more regulated with the house settlement, with the money coming from inside the house instead of outside. Because inside the house, they could put stipulations like, you're going to play. You can't walk away and still get paid, which is part of the issues now.
Remember all the old stories in the NFL about the doctors and the being, this stuff with the owners and
Yeah.
clearing guys that shouldn't have been cleared and stuff like that. I mean, it was nasty. And thankfully, we've come a long way from that, and hopefully, we keep going in that direction as medicine improves too, especially CTE and concussions. That better decisions can be made moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, even 15 so years ago, or a little bit longer, maybe 18 years ago, Kirk would talk about somebody getting dinged, and it was just kind of, I remember Jamie Murphy, the Irish car bomb is what he was
Soft
referring to.
tissue injuries.
Yeah, he's
got a soft tissue injury.
Yeah, and stuff in his brain, scrambled. But yeah, I mean, the days of no water Wednesdays and stuff that high
Junction
school
boys.
Yeah, that's over with and long gone, and that doesn't need to resurface. Those aren't. We can all, anybody that's experienced something like that can all kind of look back and think, look at us, that what we had to do. But that's something that's not even good for nostalgia, because there's really nothing smart about it. And I think that's the same thing with some of these things with concussions and CTE, and you'd see NFL players who, Alex Karras at the end of his life, he had no brain power at all, because of all that stuff. And
the junior Seau story is just so sad.
Yeah, I mean, it changes your outlook, and severe depression, and
Tyler Sash.
Yeah, right. Yeah, who is the one that Kirk wasn't real happy with.
Yes.
So,
I think there's a movie coming out, a concussion movie where Tyler's one of the main. I think Favre's in it, whatever. But people that have suffered CTE, and he's a big part of whatever this documentary. It's supposed to come out soon, I think. I saw his brother or his mother share like a trailer on social media. I'll have to go back and check that and see when it's coming out. But it's a nasty, nasty thing. And whatever happened with Cade, I would not question his toughness with what he's shown in his college career coming back from injury. And I'm not going to judge him. Everybody can do their own judgment on this stuff, and if he quit on the team or whatever. But I also think Iowa did right by him. Very, was there a bigger champion of Cade McNamara than Kirk Ferentz?
No, there isn't. He's been remarkable for him. I mean, he's even Saturday, he really talked him up. Look, this is a guy that's experienced a lot of injuries over his, last 2 to 3 years. And, you know, how much of his statement was self-serving? Cade's probably quite a bit. I don't know if he's going to try to make the case that he can, okay, now I need to, I want to apply for another year, a waiver year. I've had some issues, and I'm
You've
sure
heard that
that's,
too, huh?
yeah, I think that's probably happening, but probably won't be at Iowa.
No.
I don't think that'll be the case, but I don't know. I think at this point, it's an interesting matchup on Friday. Neither one of them is going to be there. We've seen other players drop off with very little fanfare. Devin Hilson, um, Jeff Bowie, the guys that were kind of, Devin played a lot of special teams. Jeff was oft injured. I kind of wished you could have seen him go through the end of the season, but in Devin's case, I think he wanted to concentrate on school. Jeff, I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but he's going to transfer, maybe try to get an extra year or something somewhere around the line. So this is going to be something that happens. I mean, you're going to start seeing at the end of September some players that are going to start to go, do I risk this? Somebody maybe that transferred in that just
Yeah.
didn't fit. You look at, what if Jacob Gill was like 5th team wide receiver, or something like that. These things are going to happen. You're just going to have to be prepared for them.
Yeah, they hit on that, no doubt. Jacob's
Yeah.
been great.
Mhm.
Let's talk quarterbacks, being as we're talking about Cade. What'd you think of Jackson Stratton against Maryland? Pat already asked him yesterday. He goes, "How much does it help when you run for whatever they ran for as a quarterback?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "That's good." He goes, if we can run the ball like that. And why wouldn't he? I mean,
Yeah.
you can run the ball like that. You just need somebody to, what's the saying? Keep the trains running on time. And that's
Yep.
pretty much what he did.
Yeah.
For me, and I'll throw this to you, if Brendan Sullivan is healthy this week, I play him and Stratton just to get a look. I know it makes Kirk anxious. He gets anxiety when he thinks about having to play more than one quarterback.
Yeah.
And you think about earlier this year, man, how dedicated he was to Cade. He wasn't even, at least publicly, we'd ask him and he wouldn't even consider talking about somebody replacing Cade when Cade was not productive. So um, we've talked about it, Scott, throughout. Transfer portal opens December 9th. Maybe they know what they're going to do in there, but if you have another game and a chance to get more data and more information on Stratton and Sullivan on Friday, just do it. I mean, you can put a package, put Marco in there too, put a package in for each guy that highlights their strengths.
the one-armed bandit for Marco, he's got a big club on his left thumb, and he was there. He was in uniform on, as a break glass.
I don't know how the hell he could take a snap with that thing on.
The only way you could do that would be shotgun. You just take a snap, and just hand off, or run, one of the two. With Sullivan, his mobility is probably his greatest strength.
Agreed.
He can, so if he's limited there, I don't know that I would play him. I would make him the starter for the bowl game for sure. But I would, it'd be great if he could play. But with Stratton making his first home start, I thought at Maryland, which of course it was, let's say the stadium wasn't full. It's not a very big stadium.
I know.
I thought he performed just fine. He looked like he hadn't practiced very much with Iowa's offense. I mean, like just even some of the turns on the handoffs. And
yes, I noticed that
too. And, it was like, oh, and I mean, I could just see it, like, because I don't know. I played the position in high school, and I just know how that works. And it's like, but he got it there. No fumbles on his part. It was Kamari's part, but he's 10 of 14, 77 yards or something like that passing.
Can make all the throws.
Yes, he's got a gun. There is no doubt about that. And so you've got to admire that. And I know, to their credit, I was on Friday, I was checking out like social media, and both Nick Jackson and Jay Higgins, they had their Instagram story, one picture, one person. It was Jackson Stratton, and so they were all rallying behind him. And when you have, the best or second best running back in the country, and you got an offensive line that was blowing people off the ball, then you've got yourself set for something really good. And I think that was the case the other day. And so, if he continues to do that, which is make the makeables, don't do anything stupid,
Yeah.
hand the ball off effectively, complete passes when they're open. If it be simple, don't throw any interceptions, because Brandon Sullivan started to, that game against UCLA, it was like,
Not good.
that's not going to win you any fans and
And that's why I
supporters.
wonder if Stratton struggles on against Nebraska the way Brendan did as teams got more tape on him. How does that change Tim Lester's view of what he needs in the portal?
Yeah.
It's hard, man. And like we were talking about the earlier topic, there aren't any right or wrong answers, there's just a lot of gray area because
Yeah.
you don't know how Jackson Stratton and Brendan Sullivan are going to improve between now and next season.
Right.
Maybe one of them makes it, and probably more Stratton because he's younger. Maybe he makes a giant leap and has an awesome spring.
And the thing is, though, if let's say that Brennan is capable of competing, but he can, and then he goes in and maybe plays some series or something like
You talking
that.
about Friday?
Yeah, Friday, something like that. I don't know that it would change my view if I'm Tim Lester of what, oh man, we got to keep him now, or oh man, we got to get somebody else. I think you've kind of established that probably already, because you've got to have a plan in place. I mean, signing day, crazy enough, is next Wednesday. The portal opens a week from Monday. So you've got to really figure out what you're going to do and hope to see in the portal and move forward. I think but I'm anxious more to see Jackson Stratton, because he does have an arm, no question about it. He threw some really nice out routes that I think were,
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, okay, he's got some smoke there. He's gonna have to display some touch, and he doesn't have enough experience to do that effectively on Friday night, because you cannot, in the teens, you can't throw the ball 60 miles an hour and expect your players just to catch it soft with soft hands. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just they're gonna have to catch it with their body, or it's gonna go through their hands. So he's gonna have to take something off his fastball. I don't know if he'll be able to, but if he can do the same thing, don't get trapped in the moment, go out and compete, then I think he enters that conversation. And the right conversation, if he is in it, is go get a starter, but make him your number two, and
Yeah.
work him there, because he still has some time to work. And then, in the future, he can be a, potential starter if he continues to climb on that trajectory. But I don't know. I mean, what did you think of watching him?
I thought he did what he needed to do, and he seemed um composed,
Mhm.
and that's the one thing he hasn't had much college experience at all. And you put him in there and you're like, you know, no offense to Deacon Hill, but is this going to be a Deacon Hill situation where we don't know much about this guy and it's just not there? I was encouraged. I think there's something to work with there. Can he develop enough to be next year's starter? I don't know. I mean, we didn't see enough really from him as a passer to know that. We just know that the passing game has to be better moving forward because Caleb Johnson's not coming back and you've
Yeah.
got good running backs, but it's just like, leaning on defense, leaning on special teams, leaning on the running game with a veteran offensive line and one of the running backs in the country. Eventually, not having a quarterback is going to lead to like a 4 or 5 win season. Eventually, you're not going to be able to plug the holes in the boat.
Right. And they it cost them a little bit of their window. Let's face it. From 21 to 23, they had one of the best defenses in the country, and they didn't have the Spencer in that offense, the way they had it positioned, well, he wasn't good enough. I don't know if it was, watching him playing as, until his latest injury at Utah State, that he was much better. And it makes you wonder, oh, wow, maybe if Iowa could have done something a little bit more for him, that maybe he would have looked better. And then, of course, last year was just a disaster of epic proportions, and they had a great defense. If they had, if they would have had Brennan Sullivan last year, they would have been in a much better position. I do like the wide receiver core. I think they've got some potential there. They're a year away, but Vanderzee before he got hurt. I like Jarrett Bowie. I like Dayton Howard. I like Jacob Gill has been a godsend for them. Seth Anderson at times has been good. I think as Brennan Sullivan, first was kind of becoming a runner, and then now it's just like circle the wagons, close ranks, don't do much. It's not really advantageous for most of the wide receivers right now, but I do think in the future that they've got some good pieces there.
What do you see on Friday? I did a little research on this squad of Huskers. I got here. They are, I think they're good. The defense is better than it's been, which isn't saying a ton at Nebraska, but good against the run, though.
Yeah.
So, but so was Maryland. Maryland was ranked well against the run, and you pointed out that it was against teams that really didn't have runners. What do you think about Nebraska? Is it legit?
Yeah, it's legit. It's a legit good run defense.
Okay.
I mean, they slowed down Ohio State, and so they've looked the part, and their defense, it's weird because under Scott Frost and certainly Mike Riley, it was just Swiss cheese. I mean, you could holes everywhere. They've gotten better the last couple of years, and they are a competitive unit now. And they're 35 in total D. 27 against the pass. 21 against the run. They allow 110 yards a game. It's a little bit less than Iowa does. They've played a pretty good schedule. I think they are a very challenging team to prepare for. The one difference, I'll say this, is that they run more of a 3-4, but it's almost like a 3-3-5, kind of like Iowa State. I think they're a little bit better defensively than Iowa State is, actually. But the thing is, with Iowa's offensive line, that's to their advantage, because now they've got the blocking patterns and they're physical enough that I mean, Nebraska's leading tacklers are defensive backs.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And, you don't want that if you're Nebraska in this game. Now what they'll try to do is tie up and play two gap up front. Ty Robinson's a really good player.
Yeah.
To try to avoid, some of those entanglements, and they'll make it work a few times. But I think Iowa's capable of contending here and down and down out running the football. They're going to have to make a few throws in the air, but I don't think it'll be like it was against Maryland, which they could have just ran every play. But I think this one's going to be interesting. Now, offensively, they're kind of in a similar spot as Iowa. They played really well against Wisconsin, but so did Iowa. They're 100th in rushing offense, but as we've learned, that Iowa gets no more mulligans in that department. Not after UCLA and Michigan State, you just can't say anything good about it. Total of offense, they're 95th. Do they have a player? To me, this is a game for like a TJ Hall. Remember 2 years ago, he got beat by Trey Palmer and they lost that game. And so I think you start to go, can you make up for that? Now's the time to make up for that. And they've got an electrifying quarterback, and the juxtaposition of 5-star true freshman quarterback versus 5th team walk-on quarterback is really interesting. And then, of course, the numbers, the betting lines still favor Iowa. So, I mean, the last 6 years, it's been a one-score game. And I think that's still possible, but I can see a path to victory that's larger than that for Iowa, provided that Jackson Stratton does the right thing, doesn't make too many mistakes, doesn't fumble the snap, doesn't throw into double coverage, if you can play his game effectively, then I think Iowa's got a chance to make this a convincing win to finish the season.
We'll see how young Dylan does in the north end zone if he's pegged deep there and trying to get
Mhm.
the playoff. Um,
Yeah.
we've seen
Yeah.
more veteran quarterbacks wilt in that position, and that's going to be his challenge: is trying to figure out and solve Kinnick Stadium.
Yeah.
And we'll see how he does. He's, as Scott said, he's super uber talented, but he's still a true freshman against one of the best defenses in the country. I know Iowa's defense isn't what it's been in the past, but look statistically, it's still really good, and
Yeah.
we'll challenge this young quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the key areas, they're 17th in total defense. That's still pretty good, right?
Yeah,
12th in or points scoring. Rush defense is 26th, which sounds horrible, but it's still only 115 yards a game. Pass D has gotten up there a little bit at 196, and that's some of those big plays earlier in the
yeah,
season that's kind of uncharacteristic. But you look at like other relevant statistics. Now, granted, it pains me because this was the same situation in UCLA and Michigan State. And how do they handle it differently? They're plus 11. That's eighth in the country. That's number one in the Big Ten. Nebraska's plus one. So they're getting more turnovers. When you look at other things, red zone offense, Iowa's third in the Big Ten. Nebraska's 16th. So Nebraska's kicking field goals and that sort of thing. So, and then you top it off with penalties and
yeah,
punting. Penalties and punting, Iowa is way ahead. So those are the margins. Those are the things that happen. And then finally, they've got up 23 sacks. And some of that's a young quarterback that's a little bit
yeah.
uncertain. I saw him on his worst day, and that was at Indiana when they lost 56-7. And he got, you know, deer in the headlights. They killed him.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it ends up like that, but you come to a hostile environment, and I don't know what you think, Rob, but I think having this game at night on Black Friday will be vastly different than having it at 11 o'clock on Black Friday. Because I think everybody's got a turkey hangover at 11 o'clock, and by 6:30 they are going to be back to being Kinnick Stadium for a real what you normally see on a Saturday night.
Yeah, I anticipate a lot of folks being warmed with antifreeze from the parking lot and being able to withstand those cold temperatures to cheer their team on for the final time at Kinnick Stadium this season. I've got 23-16 Iowa, Scott. What say you?
Yeah, I like that score. I'm I'm going to go with 27-17. I think Iowa covers.
What do
I
you
just
got for the number? 5.5? Well, let's go
Yeah.
into picks now. Let's just start with Iowa.
Okay. Okay. We'll start with Iowa this week.
Yeah.
And that's Iowa minus 5.5. So I'm going to take Iowa and throw the points. And it sounds like you are as well with the going to 7 point.
Yep, I got them 7 points. So, yep, I'm throwing the points as well. What's the total on that? I think it was 39-40 earlier this week, which that means they're thinking the Cold's going to keep the score down in this one. And plus, you've got two defenses that are better than the offenses. So, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. I saw a game once between these two teams where it kind of felt like the same scenario that we're at right now, and it turned into be the other way around, and that was in 2016. Iowa won 40-10, and so everybody said, when it's when it's 9:20 in Nebraska, it's 40-10 in Iowa City.
A big measuring stick for Matt
Yeah.
Rule, man, and the Nebraska program this week. If they come in here and get their asses kicked, people aren't going to care that they're going to a bowl game for the first time since 2016. It's going to look like they still aren't making enough progress fast enough.
Yeah, right. I mean, the joy that they experienced over making their first bowl game in 8 years, which is so strange when you think about Nebraska's history, but hey, they're in a different spot, and they should celebrate that. Will be short-lived if
Yeah.
they get ran out. Now, if they lose a close game, like the last 6 years, 5 of them have been close losses for them. They'll survive. They'll go to the Nashville or whatever and feel pretty good about themselves. But if it's 40-10, which I'm not predicted 40-10, but if it is, then that becomes, something that they're humbled a lot by and everything. So, Anyway, well, for last week I was 5-3. You were 4-4.
Not
We
terrible.
Yeah, we both missed on it in Indiana. We got 13 points, and then the special teams killed us.
Yeah.
Uh, we both missed on. We took Michigan State in -13, and Purdue fought valiantly.
I think Michigan State fell asleep. They had a nice lead, and then they let Purdue back in that thing.
Yeah, they were up 24-7 at halftime, and they
Yeah.
decided, let's just get out of here. It's cold. And then we both missed on UCLA against USC.
Yeah.
So, I think USC won by 6 and everything. The one that we were different on was Rutgers. You took Rutgers, I took Illinois, and it was 1.5 for Illinois, and
Another
miracle.
another goofy game.
Yeah, what a great final play there by
Yeah.
Pat Bryant. And so I was 5-3, you were 4-4. You're above water at 62, 56-1. I'm 67, 51 and 1. So going into this final regular season week, we're both in good position. We've made people money if they followed us. But the other game on Black Friday is the biggest, oldest rivalry in college football history. Minnesota at Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a 2.5-point favorite at home against the mighty Gophers.
Yeah, that line tells you jump on Minnesota, right? Because Minnesota's the better team, and then you're like, they're trying to trap me. It's a trap. I'm taking Minnesota, man. I'm not overthinking this. It's a better team than Wisconsin. If Wisconsin wins, so be it.
Yeah.
I know it's a rivalry and they're playing for an axe and all that other stuff.
Wisconsin won the axe last year, so Minnesota wants to win it. You look at the games last week. Minnesota lost by 1 point to Penn State and played really well.
Yeah.
I mean, they thumped. I mean, they were thumping. And Wisconsin, there's nothing about them other than the W on their helmet that makes me think that they're any relation to the Wisconsin teams we saw a handful of years ago. So I think this is when their streak will end. They've had 22 straight years of bowl participation.
Oh, that's right. They need this one because they lost at Nebraska. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah. So, but Minnesota's not going to feel sorry for them.
No.
No. They're not going to say, well, okay, you are friends across the river. And
no.
They will take great joy in taking the axe and saying, haha, have fun.
Putting it on the boat.
Yep.
Take the axe, put it on the boat and row.
They'll look like Vikings from Norway going and invading, North Cumbria or whatever. Illinois -7.5 at Northwestern. This is a weird series because there's nothing that says that Northwestern should be close to this game, but I'm still going to take Illinois. I can't trust Northwestern right now.
I don't like that hook, and that's why they put it in there. But I think it could be a touchdown game just because it's, as you said, a weird series. But I'm going to take the better team like I did with the Wisconsin-Minnesota game, and I'll take Illinois.
Yeah. I think this is one of those backdoor covers or losses where it's like, let's say it's 31-17 with 30 seconds left and Northwestern scores a touchdown. And then then they decide, you know what, let's go for 2.
Yeah.
And so you got like some money in the balance there, but whereas if they kick the extra point, they would cover, but then it's like, no, let's go for 2 and make it a 6. This one, Purdue at Indiana -29.5. And still give me the Hoosiers on this one because this one could be like 70-10.
Yeah, throw the points. I think Indiana will like to make a statement here against their in-state neighbor if they can. Obviously, Purdue has had a hand up in recruiting for a lot of years, and I think Indiana would like to flip that a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And it's nice going into the schools in Indianapolis saying, do you see what we did to the Boilermakers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll throw the points.
Yeah, Purdue won last year. Purdue's won several. I don't know if it's like 5 out of 6 or something like that. And They're the worst team in Power Five. They played pretty hard the other day
They
against.
showed life the other day. I was impressed with that to be able to muster that up. But again, I think Michigan State got bored.
Yeah, I agree. And Indiana getting beat the way they did, they're going to have
Yeah.
something to prove. And Signetti, and we said it from the very beginning of the year when we kept taking them over and over again. It was like they aren't the type of team, like Kirk. You get midway through the fourth quarter and they're just going to run the ball. And if they score a touchdown, it's kind of by accident, It's just like it's like we ran the ball 10 straight times. He didn't stop us. What are we going to do? But in their case, it's like, there's a minute and a half left. We're only up by 48. Let's make it 55. So
They ain't shutting it down
no.
till the final horn.
And they've got something to play for too,
Yes,
because
they do.
they're in the playoff, but they're not like comfortably in the
Yeah.
playoff. And so they're going to want to put a hurting and just say, okay, you know what? We lost to Ohio State on the road. Everybody else does that too. And we had some mistakes, but this is the real Indiana. And this is what we did to, our friends from Lafayette. And, we'll see you during basketball season, but Maryland at Pennsylvania State University, although it shouldn't be Pennsylvania Commonwealth University. 24.5. This is weird for two reasons. I would normally say Penn State, throw the points, right? But Penn State sometimes, and last week it wasn't one of them, but sometimes they get into this frame of, let's just piddle around, and then all of a sudden it's like a 10-point win. I don't think that's the case though, because they do have something to play for this time too. They have the playoff, and it's playoff seeding in their case that they can get, So I'm going to go with Pennsylvania State.
I am too. And I know these two teams do not like each other at all. It's a weird rivalry.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I would call it a rivalry. It's just kind of taking cheap shots at each other, for lack of a better term. It's kind of entertaining from the outside, but I think Penn State needs to make a statement and will make a statement here.
Yeah. I think it's Maryland wanting to be a rivalry and Pennsylvania not wanting it to be a rivalry.
Go away. Swat them away.
Who are you? Come on. It's like
you can have Rutgers as your rival, not us.
Your Rutgers rival. Go play Temple if you think you have a rival in our state. Rutgers at Michigan State. Michigan State -2 at home. Michigan State could become bowl eligible with a win. Rutgers is 6-5, so they're already bowl eligible. But I don't think Shiano's in that park of what it'd be. Let's kumbaya and everybody gets to go to the bowl game after that. I'm going to go with Rutgers. I want to go with Michigan State. I want to see them be bowl eligible, but I think Rutgers is a better team, and I'm sure that gave them such a terrible taste in their mouth how they defended Pat Bryant on the last play of the game. So I'm going to go with Rutgers to win it on the road, and Michigan State stay at home.
I'll take Sparty here. As the line would indicate, kind of a toss-up game here. And I like Michigan State at home. I give them the edge just because they're home. Really, it could go either way. I wouldn't be surprised either way.
Yeah, I don't know that there'll be a whole lot of students returning early from from Thanksgiving break to go to attend Rutgers and Michigan State. No,
they're lining up at the Breslin Center.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, they had a loss too the other day.
Yeah, they did.
Michigan at Ohio State -20.5 for the Buckeyes.
Crazy.
Here are the scenarios to me on how Michigan can stay competitive. Be physical on defense, run the ball effectively. Don't put the ball in the hands of your quarterback.
Yeah.
And here's Ohio State's thoughts. Kill. And
the only thing missing is Harbaugh.
Yeah.
But they'll still see red when they see the maize and blue, so to speak. So if it could be a close game if Michigan plays really well and Ohio State's off a little bit, but this just sets up that where Ohio State's looking to kick the crap out of their rival.
Yeah. They haven't beat them since 2019. They've lost 3 straight, and then they didn't play in 20, which would
Yeah.
have been about 100-0
Yeah.
on paper of Ohio State, but they didn't play. And they're playing for a Big Ten championship berth. They win, they're in. They're playing to beat their rival, which they haven't done, and that is a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal here, for Iowa State or Minnesota, Wisconsin, Nebraska, whatever. It's different there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like you lose that game. It's like somebody just gutted you, and then you lose 3 straight, and the stakes that they had, and then to watch the winged helmets go win the national title last year. It didn't go over too well. So I'm taking the Buckeyes, throw the points. I think that they
Same.
light up their friends. So
Yeah.
here's we've got a couple other non-conference games out in California. Fresno State at UCLA -8 for the Bruins. I'll go with the Bruins just because I think Fresno's 6-5. They're going to go to a bowl game. Or UCLA is now back to being UCLA after losing. So
I'll take
UCLA.
UCLA too. I think they're still trying to put it together, and there's a lot of talent there. They're just inconsistent, but I could see them putting a hurting on the Bulldogs.
Yeah. Notre Dame -7.5 at USC. And this is I'm not gonna pick them to win, but I'm gonna take USC and the points on this one.
Is it 7.5? You said
7.5.
fuckers. Oh, sorry.
Bad words.
They
man.
love that hook. I'll take Notre Dame. Notre Dame's rolling right now, and I just don't trust USC, particularly on defense.
I don't either, but here's what I kind of think about you with USC, that they've only lost once at home, and that was to Penn State in overtime. They were up 2 touchdowns in that game. They've been very competitive at home. Beat USC. I mean, LSU. I'm sorry, in a non-conference game. I don't think they're good, but I think they're competitive, and they've got a good offense, and and then it's going to be a different kind of game. Notre Dame, not to their fault, has played kind of a softer schedule last couple of months, but they've dominated, as you said. It's been fantastic to watch them. But I think this could be a fun game. And finally, a rivalry game that is kind of morganatic like a few of the others here. Washington at Oregon, -18.5 for Oregon. I'm going to go with Oregon.
Yep, give me the Ducks in that one.
Okay. So, are we going to do some square dancing?
Yeah, I didn't read those ads coming out. I should probably read those coming in. I was just remembering that before. All right, folks, switching is easy. We do it all the time. We switch on the lights, we switch TV channels. Some of us, like Scott, switched partners while square dancing. Well, that's a stretch, but what's not a stretch is how you can switch and save with State Farm. In fact, State Farm agent Chad Birch right here in Iowa City can switch you over so you can start saving today. Chad and his team are ready to welcome you to the State Farm neighborhood with Chad Birch. It's easy to switch and save. Just give him a call when you want the real deal, like a good neighbor. State Farm is there. Hardcore Hawk fans got to have a Kinnick Scoreboard Entertainment Center. Christmas is coming up. Contact Fanatics Furniture at 319-750-0005 or KNICK3615 at gmail.com. Scoreboard Entertainment Centers. Be hardcore. 319-750-0005 or KNICK3615 at gmail.com. And last but not least, the Black Angel Restaurant, downtown Iowa City. You know the Perez brothers from El Banditos, Perez Tacos. This is their new establishment. You won't be disappointed. A lot of fans, Scott, Pat Hardy of Hawk Fanatic. Other people I've talked to love it, so check it out. If you're in Iowa City and don't feel like cooking after Thanksgiving, that would be a good place to go Friday or Saturday and just not have to worry about cooking at all. All right, Scott, hope you have a good Thanksgiving. I hope everybody else out there has a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and I hope so too. I hope all is well with you and yours. I'll be thinking of my son who's out in Washington, D.C. right now. It'll be a little sad, but he'll enjoy it. He's been working with the Salvation Army right now in
Cool.
D.C., and he'll be back home in a couple of weeks, and we're thrilled to have him. We haven't seen him since July. So, and then I'm thinking of everybody else, whether you have families nearby, overseas, serving or what have you. I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving and enjoy your Black Friday and bundle up on Friday night.
Yep. And if you're traveling, be safe. Roads are crazy for this holiday. And yeah, have a good day, good time Friday at the game. Behave yourselves. Don't get into it with any Nebraska fans. Hold hands. Be nice. Enjoy the game, and hopefully the Hawkeye fans get bragging rights again, and we move on, and we'll see what bowl the Hawkeyes are headed to. But Scott and I'll be back to talk to you next week. Hopefully, you have a good weekend after the last regular season game, and we will talk to you then. Say goodbye, Scott.
Goodbye, Scott.